The legal cannabis industry has unlocked generational wealth opportunities across the country. But the industry's regulatory complexities, constant state of change, and speed of evolution drive confusion for entrepreneurs and investors alike. On this podcast, we'll interview the industry leaders who are shaping the future of the legal cannabis industry to help our listeners understand these idiosyncrasies. This is Cannabis Unlocked, hosted by Key Investment Partners.
All right, everybody. Well, welcome back to another episode of Investing in Cannabis with Key. I'm excited to have Dave Neundorfer here from Obx Extracts. It's one of our first investments we made out of our Fund 1 portfolio a couple years back, and certainly one of the shining stars here. So excited to have Dave here on the line to tell you a little bit about what Obx does, problems they're solving, and what, how Obx is kind of really building the cannabis company of the future here. So without further ado, Dave, I'll let you take it away with a little introduction here about yourself and kind of how you got started in the cannabis industry.
Great. Well, thanks for having me, Tiby. Again, Dave Neundorfer, CEO and co-founder of Obx Extracts. And I took, a non-traditional path to cannabis. Tiby, my background is manufacturing and engineering. And so I started my career working in automotive, at manufacturing plants, making locking differentials for off-road GM trucks and engine valves for Honda and Toyota cars. And it was always fascinated with how things are made, even since I was a little kid. And then from there, caught the entrepreneurial bug at business school, started a software company, again, in that industrial space.
You're a Stanford guy, is that right, Dave?
The Stanford guy, yeah. It was a Stanford GSB. And then while there, started a software company. And it was when we were selling the software company circa 2017 that my home state of Ohio passed legislation to allow for its first medical cannabis program rollout. And it was at that point I reconnected with a friend of mine from high school, who then became my co-founder, Oz Hackett, of the next two companies that we started, partnered with his mom to bring some medical legitimacy to our application process. And we applied for licenses, won them all to our great surprise.
Awesome.
And then we were in the cannabis business. And it was one of those things where a lot of people have this like inspirational, life-changing story about what drew them to cannabis. Ours is a lot more pedestrian. We were always, I think, appreciators from a recreational side of cannabis. But it was when we had the medical experience in Ohio and actually saw patients in our home state, which was ravaged by the opioid epidemic, getting amazing therapeutic benefit from this plant-based treatment, not only from the THC side for mood alteration, but for the non-intoxicating side, CBD and the minors. That's when we took a step back and said, well, we really are in the first inning of this entire movement, and being risk-seeking adventurers who always try to enter into spaces that have some murkiness or some gray area or some problem for us to figure out. We were excited then and are still excited now, 6 years later, to spend the rest of our careers in cannabis.
Yeah, no, that's great. And Ohio's been an interesting story. I know that you guys aren't HQ'd there or whatnot, but we actually just made our first investment in the state of Ohio just a couple months ago, and we're very excited about the potential there. Still a medical state, but we think that recreation will be coming online soon. But Obx was it's interesting. Our approach in Fund 1 was really more towards kind of the ancillary non-plant touching side of the business, and Obx certainly falls into that category. Can you maybe talk a little bit about why going non-THC cannabinoids versus being a licensed operator for Obx?
Yeah, so we wanted to work in what we thought was going to be the next phase of cannabis's evolution. And even though there was a cottage industry around CBD, it was hard to point to any of the foundation that a growing industry must have circa 2018, when we started thinking about, we were on the THC side and started thinking about the low THC or 2018 Farm Bill side of the equation. And we, Tiby, evaluated every single manufacturer who was in the space. We actually had visions for launching a CBD brand And what we came up with through our research was a null set of companies that we would feel comfortable working with.
Interesting.
And that ranges from, hey, documentation, consistency, reliability, customer service. And then the biggest problem that we double clicked on was the lack of trust. And so the problem that OBX decided to solve in this burgeoning industry is that lack of trust. And we could solve that by, number one, building the transparency, the traceability, the linkages between each step of the process. So ingredients, formulation, and finished goods manufacturing, attracting a team that is committed to doing things the right way, and then building out all of the certifications and all of the auditable capabilities to be that trusted onboard for either existing brands who are moving towards a higher quality product or a higher differentiated product, or CPGs who haven't come into the market yet, but want to start working on their formulations and R&D so they're ready when the time comes.
Yeah, that's great. And it's certainly, I mean, trust is a huge problem in the cannabis industry. I think that there's operators that vary all over the spectrum. And you know, I'd say from early on in getting to know you guys, we were just very impressed by the candor, the honesty, the attention to detail that you guys have. I think you operate one of the only EU GMP certified facilities in your area. So you know, an obvious problem that you're solving there. Maybe take a little step back for the listeners here. Tell us a little bit about what OBX does. You mentioned ingredients, formulation, finished goods, like maybe the life cycle of how, you know, let's say I want to start Tiby's CBD brand for sleep and I don't know anything.
Yeah.
What would you do for me?
Yeah, so we exist to be the one-stop shop for Tiby's CBD brand.
Yeah, it's not really on the radar, so don't get excited.
But we do that by being able to take a concept all the way to market. And so our business evolution is tied to three distinct phases. You know, so in early 2019, first of all, we domiciled in North Carolina, which had the 2014 hemp pilot program. And so in North Carolina, there's obviously a great agricultural base. And then because it was part of this pilot program, there were growers and extractors who were already familiar with hemp, even prior to the passing of the 2018 Farm Bill. And not only that, on the agricultural strengths in the Research Triangle Park in Raleigh-Durham, there's really, really deep chemistry talent. You know, there's a bunch of pharmaceutical companies, lots of universities. And so that's where we located in 2019. That was like our startup year. We bought a 76,000 square foot facility that was 4 walls, a roof, and a 6-inch slab of concrete. And we designed it from the inside out to GMP standards. And then we hit market in January of 2020 with our first product. So awesome. 2020 was building out the largest portfolio of pharmaceutical grade cannabinoids in the United States. And doing that under a CGMP certified roof. So we had to operate for 6 months before we could get that certification, which we did on the first audit. Building on the ingredients, we got a lot of feedback from Tiby's CBD company that, hey, it's great that you have CBN and THCV, but we don't know how to formulate with them. It's really different from CBD, and we need help from a formulation standpoint. How do you compound it? At what temperatures do you heat it up? And then also, how do you combine it with other actives to deliver products that work? So 2021, we built out formulation capabilities to complement the ingredients. And this year, we pushed hard into finished goods manufacturing capabilities to actually produce the final products, put them in bottles, put labels on, and then have those products be consumer ready for our brand clients. And so with this year's push, we now have the full chain of visibility that's needed. We have the trust of more than 120 brands. If you've heard of a CBD brand in the United States, then chances are they're one of our clients. But because of this center of excellence and the knowledge base that we've built across ingredients and formulation and finished goods manufacturing, we've been able to recruit a lot of THC brands who are looking to differentiate their core THC products with minor cannabinoid focused products to open up usage or occasion states beyond mood alteration for THC, beyond relaxation for CBD, and getting into sleep with CBN, post-workout recovery with CBG, focus and energy with THCV and CBDV. So with the minors and the formulation capabilities, we have the keys to unlock, a lot of different concepts on behalf of our clients, which is why we exist.
Sure. Yeah, and that's taking a quote straight out of our book. So we use the keys to unlock cannabis here too. So that's great. So operationally, that all makes sense. So clients can come to you to purchase bulk ingredients, high quality cannabinoids. They can work with you specifically to really figure out the specific formulations that they're working on. And if they don't have the infrastructure available, they can come to you all the way for contract or finished goods manufacturing. So really a one-stop shop with a supply chain. So for me, if I were to start that brand, I could focus on scaling and marketing my business and then purchasing from you directly.
That's exactly right. And we'll allow you to sleep at night because we'll hit all of the specs. We'll ensure it's compliant. And that was one of the reasons why we were excited about this side of the market, is that from North Carolina, we can legally ship into all 50 states. We have international business already. We look to expand that in the coming years. And we view this as an emerging market that will eventually be driven by business to business, likely CPG growth. And just it's really exciting to be at the early phase here.
And that's interesting. It's a good segue into one of the other points I wanted to touch on. We think about the cannabis market of the future, and part of our view is that cannabis, the recreational industry is going to continue to evolve the way it does. We think that the pharmaceutical side might take a little bit longer, but ultimately we think that cannabinoids are going to be ingredients, active ingredients that are used broadly in other sorts of nutraceutical products. I think that was part of the thesis why we got to know you guys and invested in you as well. Maybe talk a little bit about how you plan to serve the cannabis market of the future, nationally and internationally too. What does that look like versus kind of the clients that you're serving today?
So we think it all comes down to research on both the safety and the efficacy side. And with that research, number one, we'll generate trust by bringing scientifically backed data into our meetings, into our products, into our formulations. It's also research that we will democratize for our brand clients to help educate their end consumer. And so a big part of why we exist is to shine a spotlight on these products that for many still are new and somewhat intimidating. And so once you focus on research and generate that intellectual property around proprietary formulations or around how our body absorbs CBN, for example, which can inform how we formulate products on behalf of our clients, then all of a sudden in the United States, we can, of course, sell the ingredients, design the formulations, and do the finished goods manufacturing domestically. But we're not going to be able to build a 76,000 square foot facility in every new market that opens up across the globe. And so our model would not be scalable with just the ingredients and the formulations. It does become scalable if you can wrap those with data and with an understanding of how to make those products sing. And so we think that number one, we're in a position to be a supporter of either distributors or processors in new markets around the globe to help them get up and running through leveraging our knowledge base, and then also eventually through licensing our methods or our capabilities, which will allow us to hit scale, cover all of the many bases that are starting to turn on these, cannabinoid bonfires throughout the globe. And we have found that we've become kind of a partnership magnet in terms of new markets opening up, either IP providers or technology developers or new processors who are seeking to start up in South America and Central America, in Europe, in Japan. Chances are Obx will be on their top 3 call list to start working together for the learnings and the knowledge base that we've generated for the US market. So it starts with Whole capability set in the United States, and then we can leverage that in many different ways.
Right.
Short of actually building new facilities all over the world.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say the kind of the steps you're taking to achieve those goals. I think I saw an article come out maybe a couple weeks ago about a research study that you guys conducted with, I think it was 1,600 participants on pain. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about that as an example of the type of things that you guys are doing and getting ahead of.
To my knowledge, thanks for bringing that up. To my knowledge, it was the largest study that's ever been done featuring minor cannabinoids.
Wow.
And so 6 arms, 300 per arm. And what we wanted to do was, number one, it featured CBD. So every arm had a healthy dose of CBD in there. And then some of the outer arms, we would add CBG or CBC or some combination thereof, or broad and full spectrum oils. And the data kind of knocks you off your seat. The anecdotal feedback around pain and inflammation using CBD is a mile deep. What we now have is in-home user test survey-based feedback, so iHut feedback, that is statistically significant, that shows that over half of the participants had a meaningful reduction in the pain that they were experiencing prior to starting the test. And the biggest outcome for us was the personal stories that were left by some of the participants in the study, including one, I won't say his last name, but let's call him Rich. This guy works in a smelting plant, and he is a heavy equipment operator who wakes up effectively with a frozen shoulder every morning. He has to, throw his shoulder over, struggles to put on his shirt in the morning. And he started on one of our arms. I won't tell you which one it was, but he started on one of the arms, and he said within 7 days, his pain had reduced from a 9 down to a 3.
Wow.
And
I mean, that's significant.
It's life-changing. And there's this guy who went out and found, our partner was Radical on that study. They went out, found Radical's website, found their YouTube channel, and was reaching out saying, hey, I need whatever that was that you gave me. It changed my life. I need more of that now that 30-day period is over. And those are the types of experiences and quality of life changes that we hope to, help shine a spotlight on and disseminate through to the end consumer.
Yeah, no, and it's those kinds of stories that kind of keep you waking up every day and fighting the good fight that you guys are. That's just fantastic to hear. So, kind of coming towards the end right now, you and Oz have been, successful in many different avenues. This is not your first startup. What kind of lessons learned or advice would you give to a young entrepreneur trying to either enter the cannabis industry or even just more broadly, start a company today? What kind of lessons would you take away? Maybe a couple high level pieces of advice.
The cannabis industry, so we've started companies outside of the cannabis industry, and now this is our second inside the cannabis industry. And it's something that I think gets said by a lot of people about cannabis, and it's just how fast paced this market is. And it really does drive the need to design a business model and design a team, a facility, whatever it is you're going to focus on, a technology that can respond to those changes and be nimble.
Sure.
And the grittiness and the resilience that it requires. Again, all entrepreneurs, all entrepreneurial books or articles you'll read will reinforce that resilience piece. I think it's like needed tenfold in the cannabis space. Put it this way, when we started Open Book Extracts, the top 4 incumbents that at the time it was hard, they were so far above us both in top line and capabilities, it was hard to imagine a scenario where those wouldn't be the clear 4 winners. Now all 4 of those companies have either restructured or retrenched or retreated. It's because the market moves so incredibly fast beyond what their business model was designed for.
Right.
And I think that was one of the key learnings for us early in our experience with OBX. We launched at exactly the wrong time in January of 2020. And so we were born in a buzzsaw. And that attitude and that value, it's one of our core values, that grittiness and resilience is what got us through it. And then also what keeps us staying strong and staying nimble, both from a team standpoint, business model standpoint, and then also a facility standpoint going forward.
Awesome. Yeah, that's fantastic advice. And I can certainly say that out of all the investments we've made, I'd say half of the companies we've invested in look either very different or somewhat different than the company that we invested in even a couple of years ago. And being very nimble in this industry that's moving so fast paced is probably some of the best advice that you can give anyone out there. And then, persistence and all the other fun stuff that comes along with it. Well, this was really great, Dave. I really appreciate you taking some time to talk to us about OBX here. How could folks get in touch with you if they wanted to learn more about y'all and your capabilities?
Best way is shoot me an email, dave@openbookextracts.com.
All right.
And yeah, that's the best way to reach me. And if you have questions, please feel free to reach out.
All right. Awesome. Well, appreciate you again for being on the show, Dave.
Thanks for having me.
Hope everybody enjoyed learning a little bit about OBX, and feel free to reach out to Dave if you have any questions.
Thanks, Tiby.
Thanks.